Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome to those of you who are seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is we bring about social, psychological, and emotional topics and coaching topics as well in an audio format on an almost daily basis these days. We've got over 500 of those available for you to check out, and I encourage you to do that and ultimately connect if I can be of assistance to you. There's two ways to connect. First is through PO Perception on Twitter. That's P as in Paul, O as in Oreo, Perception on Twitter, or the About Me section here on this website or this YouTube page will give you access to my website, and that is helpful as well. In any event, today we're going to talk about insecure relationships, and so the things that will make a person insecure in a relationship. There's about 6 or 7 things I want to go through here. The first is, if you don't accept yourself, you won't accept the value of the relationship as a whole. So self-acceptance is super important in that scenario, because at the end of the day, when we see ourselves as worthy to be loved, then we have different standards, and some would even say better standards, about the type of love that we will expect from other people. Whereas when our self-esteem is negative, when our self-esteem is low, the ability to have the expectation that we'd be treated well is less. The next is invisibility. So a person who feels like their opinion, their viewpoint, their sacrifices, contributions, or etc. to the relationship are insignificant or undersignificant, that will cause a problem in and of itself, because when you feel invisible to your partner, when you feel like your contributions don't matter, it's easier to get kind of tied up, for lack of a better term, in the relationship becoming more and more toxic over time. The insecurity is challenging because you don't want to put pressure on the other person, and then you feel like, and this leads to the third point, you're in limbo. So relationship limbo usually comes down to the fact that two things are true in one form or another. Either the standards that a person sets are not well defined, or agreement in the relationship itself is not mutually beneficial. So if a person has, and here's a big challenge, people often believe that others see relationships in the same way they do without having communication about what standards in the relationship actually are. And this causes a lot of trouble, because if I say, for example, in my perfect relationship, I spend 3 days a week with a person, and my partner says, in my perfect relationship, we spend every day together, one of us is going to be unhappy. One of us is going to either end up losing ourselves in the process, or we're going to feel neglected. And so the communication that is so necessary for the relationship not to be in limbo, talking about what we're looking towards, talking about what we're working towards, talking about what comes next, is essential. And a lot of people are afraid to do that because A, they think that the assumption that the other person sees things the way they do is good enough. It's not. Or B, they're afraid to have the conversation because of the conflict that'll come. Trouble with that is the internal conflict is going to come either way. So the next thing there is the lack of trust. Trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship. Trust is the foundation of any relationship that's ever going to work long term or medium term. Once trust is gone, it takes a lot to rebuild it. Very rarely can it be completely rebuilt. In other words, if trust has actually been violated, the odds that you're able to fully let things go unconsciously, consciously, and subconsciously is about 5 to 10%. People can do it, but there has to be a complete level of transparency towards the going forward and agreeing to go forward from here. Lots of people lie to themselves and say they've let go of things they haven't, thereby creating a lot of extra pressure in the relationship that eventually comes out weeks, months, or years later. The next is communication style and commitment to communicating. So, you know, talking about where the relationship is going doesn't have to be a daily thing, but might need to be in the early stages a weekly, monthly, or quarterly thing. If you don't know where you're going and or you haven't checked to see if your partner's goals and aspirations have changed, a lot of people think that because there's an emotional connection, that means that a person is willing to sacrifice their internal ambitions, which just because you would doesn't mean they will, and it can create insecurity when the belief that the sacrifice is there and the actions of sacrifice not being there are at odds with each other. The next thing in this type of situation is the comparison with previous relationships. So, look, there are going to be things that remind you of a previous partner. There are going to be things with a new partnership that make the new partner better for you. There might even be things you miss about an old partner and you wish they were more like someone from your past. I can honestly say I got into, as I get my phone, but I got into a relationship like that years ago. The illusion of competition is never healthy for a relationship because it leads to expectation that one person is going to be able to fit every need you have ever had, even if they're evolving or growing. And so that illusion of competition must be eliminated for a relationship to be secure and healthy. The last point is if you avoid conflict. People who are insecure in their relationships avoid conflict because when you are going for conflict, there's a chance of loss. Avoiding the perception of loss through avoiding conflict is one thing that people do in order to make sure that they have something. The illusion of having the relationship entitled matters more than the actual functionability of the relationship for these individuals. And so that can be extremely healthy to look at going forward. Anyway, till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.